Hello everyone, so I'm here today to do my wrap-up for April, and as always I will start with some stats. So first of all, I read 12 books, 3,584 pages and 5 hours and 47 minutes. I think that's how it works. Anyway, I have read a few audiobooks this time, and I have started to differentiate between hours and pages way too late. So actually the actual page number that I have physically read is less than that, but yeah, because I changed it too late. This is what the stats are saying, but I think it's more around 3,000 pages, which is what my goal is normally, to read about 100 pages a day. My moods were reflective, mysterious, emotional, dark, and challenging. Yeah, mysterious is normally not one that is in my chart that big, but it was this month. Also, there was a little part of funny and lighthearted, which is also normally not in my books, but this time it was, so that was fun. Then pace, most of it was medium, but I also had some slow books and some fast books. Again, fast books are normally not part of my reading, and normally the slow books portion is bigger, so that's also probably why I have read more than normal, because I've read fast light-hearted books, at least one or two of them. In terms of page number, I have read 60% less than 300 pages and 40% between 300 and 499 pages. This is also, in the last few months, has been a bit of a trend that I read a lot of small books, and I think that's partly because of my Read Around the World project. It has a lot of small books, so that's probably why. In terms of the audiobook length, 50% was more than 16 hours and 50% was less than 8 hours. I think I finished 2 or 3 audiobooks. I think I finished 2 audiobooks this round. One of them was like 4 hours or something, and the other one was like 20, so yeah, that makes sense. Then for all of the books I read this month were fiction, which is surprising. Normally there is some non-fiction thrown in there, but I think because of the Women's Prize for Fiction prize and the International Booker, I read a lot of those books, so that's why most of it is fiction. And that also, if you look at the genres, literary is by far the biggest chunk in this, and again, that's probably because I have been reading a lot of books from prizes and stuff. When you look at the format, so 42% was on print, 42% was in digital, and 17% was audio. So as I was saying, like there is a significant part of audiobook in this chart, so that's also why a lot of the reading was higher than normally it is. And the ratio between print and digital I'm quite happy with. I think 50-50 for now, it's quite good, so yes. In terms of languages, I have read 9 books in English, 2 in Spanish, and 1 in French. Again, that's a mix between International Booker books and Read Around the World project books. That's why there's a few other non-English books in here, which is fine. And then when you go for the pages per day, there is a huge peak around day 9, and that's because I kind of listened to a whole audiobook on that day. And the same for the end wiggles. I was reading an audiobook, so that's why I read so much. But actually, if you look at the baseline of it, there are a lot of days that I read a lot less than 100 pages, and there is a particular dip around the 20th, and that's because I was on holidays and I was just not reading nearly as much. But yeah, overall, I think if you account for those things, it looks pretty normal. Around 100 pages a bit higher, a bit lower seems to be where I'm at this point in my life. So yeah, those are kind of the stats a little bit. Let's go into the books now. The first one I read was Standing Heavy by Guaz, and this was longlisted and then shortlisted for the Booker International. And this was about Ivorian security guard in France and his observations of working at Sephora, and it's mostly about social structures and social cues, like what white women do or what black women do, kind of thing. And I found the observations, sometimes they were funny and sometimes they were a little bit out of place, but what frustrated me the most about this book is that sometimes it felt like it was building up to something more deep and profound, but it never quite got there. So there was some profound thinking in these observations, but it just never got reflected in the actual book. There was also a part of the actual life of this security guard and the things that he went through to be in the position he is, and I like that more, I think, because it just felt more like a normal narrative. But again, like, everything was mixed together and it didn't really go anywhere. I have a full review of it if you want to know more of my thoughts, but overall it was a underwhelming book. Not bad, but underwhelming. The second book I finished this month is Whale by Kuang, and this is also part of the International Booker, and this is a very difficult to describe book. It's about a mother and a daughter and again, I have a review of it, so I will link down below as well, but it's about a mother and a daughter in Korea, and how bluntly misogynistic the society is, and how they have to go through all of these motions of the misogynistic nature of the society. I like parts of it, but sometimes it just felt a bit much. Like, it didn't have to be as violent or as gore as it was to get the message across. So yeah, I have mixed feelings about it, but overall I'm a book that I'm hesitant to recommend because it's clearly not for everybody. The next one that I read is La Hija Única, or Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettel, which again, it's part of the International Booker, and this is, I think, my first 5 stars in a couple of years. It was really good. I listened to the audiobook, which in Spanish is narrated by the author, and it was just really good. I have again a review of it, so I will link all of the reviews down below. But it's about 2 women that were friends, and one of them, they both originally decided that they didn't want to have children, but one of them changes her mind, and the one that keeps not wanting children is the one that narrates the story. But we mostly follow the story of the one that decided to have a child and the journey that she had to go through to get pregnant, and then how that pregnancy had very severe complications that made everything feeling wise really difficult. It really reflects, I think, the ambivalent feelings that a lot of people have about motherhood, and specifically women, because it's not a black and white thing like it's often portrayed, and I think this book really made a really good point of making that clear. So I really enjoyed this one. I think it's a really good book. Then the next book that I read was The Bandit Queens by Parina Shroff, and this one I read for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and this one was just very fun. It was about a group of women in India. So one of them is rumored in the village to have killed her husband because he disappeared with no trace, and he was a drunkard, and everyone knew that he hit her and abused her. So one day he disappeared, and everyone assumed that she killed him. And that's the starting point of the book. And then one of the other people in the village, she comes to this woman for help to kill her own husband, who is also a drunkard and abusive. And that starts scaling up and scaling up to all of the horrible things that all the husbands seem to be doing around. And yeah, it's just fun. It feels kind of low stakes, even though it's a lot about killing husbands. But it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And again, review down below. Next one I read is Jimi Hendrix's Life in Lviv by Andrei Kurkov, which again, review down below. And this one was very disappointing. So I had read Grey Beast by this author before, and I liked it. I thought it was a bit slow, but I liked it. But Jimi Hendrix's Life in Lviv, it was just very, very slow, and at some point it seemed like it was building to something, and then the ending was like the most disappointing thing. It just fiddles out completely. There were so many characters that felt the same as the other ones, like everyone felt the same, and it was just like the characters were crap, the topics that were touched were crap, the plot was crap, so it was not a very successful one, but I read it. Then I read Time Shelter by Gregory Gospodinov, again for the International Booker, and again I have a review for it. And this one was interesting. I know that not everybody likes this book, but I enjoyed it. It's about two people that are into psychoanalysts and psychology and psychiatry that decide to open a clinic for Alzheimer patients, in which each floor is based on a different decade within the 90s, so that these people live in what their memories are. So it happens often that Alzheimer's patients will live in their youth. So if their youth was in the 60s and they live in the 60s floor, it will enhance that imaginary timeline, and they will be happier and therefore live longer. That's the theory. But when people get to hear that this is a thing, people that do not have Alzheimer also want to go back to certain timelines, and then it becomes even bigger, and countries decide that want to go, whole countries decide, okay, we're going to make a referendum and move to a certain decade in our timeline because that was our golden decade or whatever. So that's kind of the idea of the book, and I found it very interesting. Also, the writing style is very conversational, which I was not expecting for some reason, so it made it really easy to read and comprehend to me, and I just really enjoyed it. So yeah, I know that not everybody likes it, but I did. Then I read M by Kim Thuy, and this is part of the Dublin Literary Award shortlist, and this is set in Vietnam, and it's about a couple of generations within that context, and what the characters had to go through, and all the horrors of the Vietnam War, which in Vietnam is called the American War. It's a very short book. It's like 150 pages, and it didn't have the time to spend with the characters themselves, so there is not a lot of character development. It's more about a spot in time and a feeling in time, and that's all that is trying to do, I think. So for me, it was, I wouldn't say enjoyable, but it serves the purpose that it was looking at, and I think it's a good book. But I also didn't find it particularly memorable. So yes, it's a little bit of that was a good read, but I can forget about it now. Then I read Desarticulaciones by Silvia Molloy, and this was sent to me by Charco Press. So thank you, Charco Press, for this. I really enjoyed it. I have a review for it as well. I'll link it down below. And this is a very short book. It's less than 100 pages, and it's about the author writing to one of her very good friends that has Alzheimer's. A lot of Alzheimer's books lately, and it's like snippets of conversations and things that they experience, and like the little things about Alzheimer. Like one day she will go and there will be, I don't know, she will not know what a certain Argentinian delicacy was, and then the next time she will come and she will remember this specific time when they both had it. So these ups and downs and these waves of feeling and of memory that come with Alzheimer, and I really enjoyed it. I think that this author is really good at conveying the feelings and the smaller things. So I'm actually very interested to read something more from this author. I think she's a very good writer, and clearly she's a very acclaimed Argentinian writer. So yeah, I'm looking forward to read more of her. Then the next book that I finished was Love Novel by Ivana Sajko, which was again part of the shortlist of the Dublin Literary Awards. And this one was written in very long sentences, and it's supposed to give you an idea of this twisty nature of the character, because the character is very non-reliable and all of that. But yeah, overall it addresses topics of marriage and patriarchy and stuff like that. And I found some of them interesting, but again, this is also a very short book, like 100 pages book, and it was not memorable enough to me either. I think that's a problem that I have with small books, that I just consume them and sometimes I get things from them, but overall they are just too short for me to get like gripped by it. I have the issue that normally I enjoy the end of the book much better than the beginning. The first, I don't know, 20 to 50 pages, I'm trying to figure out where the book is doing, what is going on, what the characters are, all of that stuff. So if the book is very small, I have a lot less time to enjoy the first work that I did to get into the book. So that's, I think, why often short books do not work that well for me, and this is no exception. Then I listened to Babel by Kuang. I have heard a lot of things about this last year, and this is a story about a boy that is from China, and he's brought to the UK by his father. That is like he's an illegitimate child, but everyone kind of knows that this guy is his father, and he's brought to England to work in this language institution in Oxford that is called Babel, and there is a lot of things going into this institution, and at first he's enjoying his time there, but then he starts looking into more dark secrets about the society and trying to combat those things. And I found it's a lot about colonialism mostly, and racism, but most colonialism more specifically, and I found that it was very on the nose, which I don't particularly mind, but it was something that was there, and it was fun. It was interesting to read. I think when it comes to fantasy, this is the kind of fantasy I like to read, so I really enjoy the process of reading it. But yeah, it's not like the best book I've ever read in my life, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think it was nice to have a break from like this super literary kind of stuff and just have a book that was just fun, and it was easy to read and easy to get into, and the characters were very not relatable, but like lovable. So yeah, sometimes it's nice to have a book like that. Then the next one I finished was The Age of Magic by Ben Okra. I have read several books by Ben Okra by now, and they're a bit hit and miss. I really liked The Famished Road, but then I read Escape Artist, I think, or something like that. And these ones are more miss than hit, I would say. They're not bad books, but I just didn't connect with the book that much. So this is about a series of people working on a movie in Switzerland, and then there is some kind of contact with the devil, and then their lives change and their thoughts change. It's very retrospective, and it's kind of magical realism about like the inner thoughts of these people, and I just didn't care about these people that much. I think I like the way that how Ben Okra uses magical realism, but I just didn't particularly like these people or care about them or whatever topics they were trying to address. So this one fell a bit short for me, but I'm still going to try more Ben Okra because the things I've loved, I really, really loved. And then the last one I finished was Si la cour du mouton est salée, ce n'est pas au porc de le dire, by Florent Couao-Zotti. I don't know if there is an English translation of this book, but this one I read for Benin, for my Read Around the World project, and it's kind of a crime novel about drug dealers in Benin. And honestly, it just felt kind of generic for me to like the whole drug thing. It was okay. I read it. It was in Benin, but yeah, crime books are not my bread and butter. So yeah, this was just okay. It was just mostly one of the few books I could find from Benin, so that's what I read, but nothing to write home about. Not bad either. I enjoyed parts of it, but yeah, it's not the book that I would have chosen if I had more choice, let's say. But yeah, those are all the books that I read this month. Let me know if you have read any of them or what you have read in April. What was your favorite read? And in the next video, bye!